up to Halacha Hey. Previously in this perek, we learned about the Itur, the Abed Limchok, to erase one of the names of Hashem that are associated with Hashem. And we learned that there were 7 such names. Now Rambam writes in Halacha Hey, Sha'ar HaKinuim, Shemeshabahim Bahem HaKodesh Baruch Hu, other descriptions, other terms that are used to refer to Hashem. Keron, Hanun, V'Rahum. Sometimes Hashem is called by that attribute, meaning Hanun, V'Rahum, or Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanora, Hana'eman, Kana, V'Hazak, and all these are terms that we find in the Tanakh referring to Hashem. Harahen kisha'ar divrei hakodesh, umutar l'mohakan. These words, even though they are referring to Hashem, are like any other word in the Tanakh or in the Torah. They're not considered names of Hashem that may not be erased. Shasul la'abadam. They may be erased. Now, why would you want to erase such a thing? It's not mutar to do so for no particular reason. That's called derech hashhatha or bizui, bizayon. In other words, to erase the name of Hashem is asur. But if it's being done for the purpose of writing this, shall we say, the Sefer Torah, the Sofer made a mistake and he skipped a word, and he has to go back, he has to erase one of the words that he wrote to make room for the word that he missed. As part of that malacha of Kativat HaSefer, of writing the book in question, he is allowed to erase one of those words, any of those words in the Torah, except for the Shir Shemot, except for those 7 specific names that we mentioned earlier in Halacha Beth.
Harav, I have a question from last week. If the name Elohim is written without the Yod, is it permissible to erase that, or does that still have the Kedusha of one of the names of Hashem?
Without the letter Yod?
Yes.
I believe it is not considered not considered Hashem. Rambam now continues in Halacha. Well, Kali Shaya Shem Katuv Alo. The word Kali often can refer to a vessel of some kind. It could be a cup or a plate, or it could also be a knife or a fork, etc. As we find in Seder Taharot, in Masechet Kelim, talking about various types of Kelim, but also in that same Masechet, for example, also in the Torah, the word Kali also refers to a garment. A garment is also called a Kali, right? So when Hazal say that when you purchase Kelim Hadashim, they're not referring only to household items of different types, but also referring to clothing. So a person buys a new suit, shall we say, or something of that sort. So he is someone who has now bought Kelim Hadashim. So here we are talking about this halakha is referring to essentially a garment of some kind. Keli Shaya Shem Katuv Alo. For some reason, a person had an article of clothing on which the name of Hashem appears. A person cannot walk around with that name of Hashem on that article of clothing. That is considered a bizui or bizayon of Hashem, walking around with it as if it's some kind of slogan or something. So what does one do? One has to remove it by cutting it off from the rest of the bered. And one has to literally put it into geniza, which means essentially you have to bury it in the ground. When we speak about geniza in this In this kind of context, we're talking about burying things in the ground. That's what we do with what's known as Shemot or Shemus in general, right? Like ancient Sefer Torah that's falling apart because of its age. What do we do with it? We bury it in the ground. אפילו היה השם חקוק בכלי מתכות או בכלי זכוכית. Even if we're talking about the name of Hashem that appears not on a garment which is easily cut, and therefore that name can be easily removed from the garment, but rather we're talking about some metal vessel. As we said, the word kali can refer to both. So we're talking here about some metal utensil or vessel or something made of glass. And a person, by way of heating it up, at great heat, such a thing becomes liquid and it dissolves, right? Metal and glass also. High temperature, yes, but it's possible to do this. And by doing so, one essentially is erasing the name of Hashem, correct? So this is considered, this is included within the Isur of Mehikat Shem Hashem, of erasing the name of Hashem. And therefore the person is guilty of this Isur and is Hayav Malkuyoth. He is to be flogged according to the decision of the Beth Din. So what should one do? Again, one has to somehow break off or cut off that part. In the case of something made of glass, it's more difficult to do such a thing, but it can be done and must be done. Or in the case of metal, it's a bit easier to cut, to somehow remove it. Now, what if a person has the name of Hashem written on his body, on his flesh? If a person had the name of Hashem written on his person, a person is not allowed to wash or to anoint, literally, or place oil on his body and rub it into his body, because we're not talking here about a tattoo, which is indelible. We're talking about something was written on a person's skin with a pen or something else, some paint, but it does come off. It is removed by doing these things, by taking a bath, for example. So that person is not allowed to do so. Refers to essentially a place where there is excrement and urine, etc. As Rambam says in Chot Kriyat Shema Perek Gimel, he defines it in this fashion. He says over there, Rambam writes in Perek Gimel Halacha Daled in Chot Kriyat Shema about it being asur to mention, to recite Shema or other Divrei Torah in the toilet or some other similar place. Rambam says here, the Vet HaKiseh is not allowed in the toilet, or Vet HaMerchas, or in the bathhouse, or in Komat Tinofet, literally a place of filth. V'hu hamakom sheyesh bo so'a o meraglayim, such a place where there is excrement or urine before one. That is called the makom tinofet. So obviously this is a very, very bad idea for a person to write the name of Hashem on his body in some way, because many things that he does will involve an isur. So it's a very foolish and it's not mutar to do such a thing. If, however, he must be tover in the mikveh, and this is not a tavila which he can simply forego, it's something he has to do. Korech alo gemi or gami or tovel. Gami is basically the plant from which papyrus or papyrus is made. It's a kind of plant which can be dried and then can be wrapped around one's arm, shall we say. Let's say you have the name of Hashem written on your arm. You can wrap it around that area of your arm. Both papyrus was made of this plant, and also rope and string was made from this plant. So you take a piece of this material and wrap it around the area where the name of Hashem appears on your body. And you go and you tovel the mikveh. But if you cannot find such a material, sabiv aharo, he has to go out of his way and look for it and search it out until he finds it in order to do this tevilah. When doing so, says Rambam, lo yahadek, he should not place it too tightly on that spot, kadesh lo yahos, so there should not be a hasisa. It should not be something which is hoses, which is mafsik between himself and the water of the mikveh, because a person is hayav tevilah, all of his body must come into contact with the water. The reason that this halakha was stated in this fashion is not because the concept of hasisa with regards to a tevilah does not apply here. It does apply, but it's asur for this person to be naked, to stand naked with the name of Hashem written on his body, and therefore it has to be covered. But the fact that we say he should tie something around it doesn't mean that it should be, we should understand that he's allowed to be tovel. We don't really care whether it is hoses or not, whether it forms some kind of a barrier or not. We do care about that, and that cannot be, tevilah without that is not valid. Right? Tevilah lo ala thalo. So again, Rambam says, "V'lo yehadek, kadesh lo yahos." A person should not tie it too tight. Shelo amaru likroch alo ela mipnei she'asur la'amod b'fnei Hashem orom. This was said because of the fact that it's a for a person to be naked when having this name written on his body. So we see again, it's an impossible situation, and the person, of course, should not place himself in such a situation. Now, in the next halakha, halakha zayin, Rambam says, "Hasoter afilu even achat derech hashchata min hamizbeach or min ha'echal or mishar ha'azara." A person who destroys or dismantles even one stone of the mizbeach in the mikdash, the altar, or min ha'echal, or any part of the hechal, or mishar ha'azara, or any part of the azara, which is surrounded by a wall, any part of that area where you have stones, something made of stone, destroying or dismantling or removing one of those stones, a person is hayav due to this isur lokeh, or a similar isur. Shene'emar ba'avodah zarah, it states with reference to avodah zarah in Sefer Shemot, ki at mizbehotam titosun, you shall destroy their mizbahot, their altars of avodah zarah in Eretz Yisrael. When you arrive in Eretz Yisrael, this is what you should do. And it states further in Sefer Devarim, Perek Yud Bet, lo ta'asun ken l'Adonai Elohechem, but you shall not do thus with regards to Hashem. So we are not allowed to do that which we are commanded to do with regards to avodah zarah. We're not allowed to do the same with regards to anything that is connected to Hashem. This is on condition, of course, that it's being done derech hashchata, for the purpose of destroying. But let's say the stone, one of the stones of the mizbeach is cracked or disintegrating or falling off for whatever reason, and has to be replaced. Then, of course, it is mutar. That is part of the mitzvah of building the mizbeach and maintaining the upkeep of the mizbeach. וכן השורף עשה הקדש דרך השחתה. If a person takes wood, logs of wood, pieces of wood that were hekadesh to the Bet Mikdash, it is possible to donate, to make hekadesh of wood to the Mikdash, to the Mizbeach, so that it may be used on the Mizbeach, and they have a din of hekadesh, and like any hekadesh, they may not be used for any other purpose. So if a person does this with regards to aseh hekadesh, derech hashchata, again for the reason, for the purpose of destroying lokeh, shene'emar u'asherehem tisrafun ba'esh. Again, the Torah speaks about burning and destroying, uprooting trees, asheroth, that were planted for the purpose of avodah zarah. This was many forms of avodah zarah involved certain kinds of trees being planted in a certain space, and that was a makom avodah zarah, as it says in Yirmiyahu and other places. So this was the practice, both of the goyim and unfortunately also of many Yehudim who emulated them. Halacha Hef, Kidvei HaKodesh, Kulam, all of the 24 books of the Tanakh, Uferushehen Uve'urehen, Asul Isrof, Othan Ola Abavam Bayad, all of the Kidvei HaKodesh, which refers to the Tanakh, 24 books of the Tanakh, and Perushim and Beurim written on those books, Asur Lisrof Otham, Ola Abavam Bayad, is asur to burn them, to commit them to the fire, or to destroy them in any other way. This is not referring to necessarily Shem Hashem. There may be a section of the Torah or the Navi where Shem Hashem does not appear. But the fact that these are part of Kidvei HaKodesh means that they may not be destroyed, with or without reference to Shem Hashem. If there's Shem Hashem there, it's obviously worse, because then it's a Asur in HaTorah. If it is only, so to speak, words from the Tanakh, but not Shem Hashem, then it is Isur Divrei Soferim, and therefore Hama'abed Bayav, he who does so by direct action, such as throwing it into the flames, Lokhem Makath Mardut, he's to be flogged, Divrei Soferim, which is called the Makath Mardut, as we saw previously. Rambam, we saw the explanation that the word Marduth apparently comes from the Aramaic Shoresh, Resh Dalev Yod, Yuduf, Redi, which is similar to the Hebrew Shoresh of Yasar, Yasir, Yod Samech Resh, which means to punish, to chastise, etc. And there are those who explain the term Makath Marduth, Minashon Mered, simply the Hebrew word mered, which is to revolt. In other words, a person did something as a kind of revolt against Hashem. He decided he's going to do it. Why not? That's what he wants to do. So that involves an act of mardanuth, of revolt, of rising up against Hashem, as it were. If you are able to look at Hilchot Sefer Torah, Hilchot Tefillin Mezuzah Sefer Torah, in Sefer Ahava, Perek Asiri, Halacha Hey, so it appears in front of me. Rambam here is talking about how one relates to Sifrei Kodesh. So here Rambam writes, Mutar lahaniach sefer al gabe sefer. We're talking about placing one Sefer Torah on top of another Sefer Torah, shall we say, to transport. That is mutar, because they're both at the same level of kedusha. So one may place Sefer al gabe sefer, one Sefer Torah on the other. Wa'en tzarich lomar al gabe humashin. And obviously one may do so on something which is of a lower level of kedusha, which is a humash. A humash is not what we call a humash today. A humash is like a mini Sefer Torah. It's one of the parts of the Torah, like Sefer Shemot, Sefer Vayikra, written on Kelaf, and similar to a Sefer Torah, but it's not the entire Torah, it's just one humash. That's called humashim. So one may obviously place a Sefer Torah on top of a humash. Humashim al gabe nevi'im uchtovim, and humashim, which are part of the Torah, may be placed on top of books, again written on the Kelaf, written like a Sefer Torah, of Nevi'im or Ketuvim, different parts of the Tanakh, written in separate Megilot, separate rolls, scrolls. Aval en manichim Nevi'im or Ketuvim al gabe humashim. But the reverse may not be done. One may not place Nevi'im and Ketuvim on top of humashim, which are part of the Torah. V'lo humashim al gabe Sefer Torah. And a humash may not be placed on top of a Sefer Torah. And here Rambam adds, V'chol kitvei hakodesh, in all of the holy writings, afilu halachot v'hagadoth, even though these are not part of the Tanakh, these are Torah she'ba'al peh, halachot, shall we say, Mishnayot, Haggadoth, Midrashim, all such books, asur lizrokotam, may not be simply thrown away. It's true, they're not on the level of a Torah or a Humash or a Navi written on Kalaf, like a Sefer Torah. And even if they are written on Kalaf, they're not on the same level. They may not be thrown away. And this includes handing them from one person to another. You don't toss it from one hand to another, from your hand to another person. You hand it over in a way which implies kavod. So we see that books of Torah, all sefarim connected to Torah, must be treated with respect. May not be treated lightly, even though the surah of Mehikat Hashem or erasing of the word is not the same surah does not apply. Okay, it's back to Halacha Heth in Hilchot Yesodei Torah Perek Shishi. Kitvei HaKodesh Kulan u'perushihen u've'erehem, and perushim written on various parts of the Tanakh. Asur lisrof othan or la'abedan bayad, and if you do so, ma'abed bayad lokat makat madut. B'ameh devarim amorim, when is this the case? B'chitvei HaKodesh shekadavu othan Yisrael b'kedusha. This is true of Kitvei Kodesh, parts of the Tanakh, any sefer, any section from the Tanakh that were written. We're talking about things that were written by hand by a Jew. Shekadvu Othan Yisrael b'kedusha. In other words, according to Halacha, and his intention was to write a sefer of Kitvei HaKodesh b'kedusha, that it should be kadosh, and if the name of Hashem appears there, he wrote it according to the halachic requirements of writing Shem Hashem. That's called Kitvei HaKodesh shekadvu Othan Yisrael b'kedusha. Then all this applies. However, aval min Yisraeli shekatav sefer Torah. If we have a Jew who is not a Jew who follows the Torah or the halacha, he has his own ideas and opinions. For whatever reason he wants to write a sefer Torah. It could be he may believe in the Torah in his own way and wants it for that purpose to study. or he may be writing it to sell to somebody else. That's how he makes a living, by writing. Min Yisraeli, and the word min, as we will see in a moment, has a specific definition. We will discuss that in one moment. Min Yisraeli shekatav sefer Torah sorofim otho im ha'azkarot shebo, used to be burnt, including the names of Hashem that appear in that sefer, in that scroll. Mitpanei shelo ma'amin b'kedushat Hashem, because this person does not believe in the kedusha of that name that he is writing. V'lo ketavo ela v'hu ma'ale b'da'ato shezeh kishar ha'devarim. From his perspective, it's just not another word. It doesn't signify anything specific. He does not accept or understand the concept of these names of Hashem that may not be destroyed, nor does he understand how they may be written, nor does he care. So such a thing does not acquire kedusha. The kedusha depends specifically on the kavanah halev, on the thought and the intention of the person writing those words. Without that, the kedusha is not lo hala, no nitpeset. It does not take hold, as it were, of those letters of that word. So we see this is a good example of the halacha where the person's intention, kavanat halev, is all important. Okay, it's totally dissimilar to a miswa, shall we say, like natilat lulav. There is a mahloket, whether in general, whether miswat sarichot kavanah, whether a person has to be aware and have the intention of performing a miswa before he does it, and only then does it count as a miswa, or just the fact of doing it without really thinking about anything in particular is considered having done the miswa. There is such a mahaloket. The bottom line is, it seems to be a mahaloket between the Talmud Bavli and Talmud Yerushalmi, or a possible mahaloket at least, because the Talmud Bavli at length discusses and tries to explain the shita that miswat enan sarichot kawana. They do not require kawana, despite the fact that the pshat of the Mishneh, the Tosefta, various baraitot in many places indicates the opposite. So it's clear that according to the Mishneh, according to the Talmud Yerushalmi, the halacha is that miswat sarichot kawana. According to the Bavli, it's somewhat less clear. The halacha, according to many Rishonim, but not all, is that miswat sarichot kavanah. That is the view of the Rambam as well. But all this applies to a miswa where the main element of the miswa is performing a physical action, such as natilat lulav or tiki'ath shofar, right? But here, writing the name of Hashem, there is no mahloket. There is no, at least mahloket does not apply. Here is only kadosh. That name is only kadosh if the person writing is a Jew who follows the Torah and follows the Tashe Bichtav and Tashe Ba'al Peh and understands what he's doing and intends to do that thing. Only then is that name considered to be kadosh. And therefore, Rambam says, "Waha'il with the and seeing that this is his position, his view. So this is just another word, and it has no particular meaning or significance or kedusha. Lo nitkadesh Hashem, that name does not become kadosh. Umiswa lesorfo, and is there, and also therefore miswa to burn it. If we thought it was kadosh, but we don't want to allow to remain in this world things written by such people for various reasons, then we wouldn't say it's mutar to burn it. We would say you have to put it away somewhere, hide it somewhere, or bury it in the ground perhaps. But no, here the miswa is to destroy it, mamash. Miswa lesorfo. Why? So that the actions and the points of view, the opinions, the philosophies, the ideas of these people and their actions should be forgotten and should not. There should be nothing to remind us and to commemorate they themselves or their actions. That is with regard to a min Israeli, which again we will define more precisely in a moment. A Jew who is a sectarian Jew, we could refer to it as a sectarian Jew. For this reason, there are certain Jews today from whom I, at least, would not purchase a Sefer Torah or Tefillin or Mezuzah. People who, it's impossible to know, frankly, what they think about certain things and what they have in mind when they write Shem Hashem. So he may be a very pious-looking individual, but if he has hashkafot, and beliefs which contradict the Torah, which one may not hold such views. For example, that a certain human being, although clearly deceased, is not deceased, or that such a person, a human being, is something other than a human being. Such a person may well be, and very likely, in fact, should be viewed as a mini Israeli, and therefore one understands that things written by such a person, such a sofer, are to be shunned. However, with regards to a non-Jew, he's just a person who is writing a Sefer Torah, might be probably mainly for purposes of selling. He knows that there are Jews out there who want a Sefer Torah. He's good at calligraphy. He enjoys writing. He writes a Sefer Torah. It's beautiful. He may have the most wonderful hand, but it was not written by a Jew who believes in the Torah or in names of Hashem, and it does not know how to write them and doesn't have the right intention. Therefore, although he's not a min, on the other hand, so we don't have to destroy completely that which he has done, nor can it be used, nor should it shouldn't be left around in such a state that someone might end up using it. So therefore, what we do, gonazim otho, it is to be, again, as we said before, buried. The word hidden, just destroyed to the extent that it cannot be found or used by anybody. And the same is true of any Kitvei HaKodesh. In other words, any part of the Tanakh that was written by someone on parchment. Now, that due to their age and their being used so much, balu, they are now falling apart. Right? Balu is something which is being worn out. Or sheketavan goy, or they were written by a non-Jew. Yigonazu, they should be removed and buried. Right? That is the halakha. Now, with regards to the definition of a min, Rambam discusses this in a number of places. You can look, for example, in Hilchot Teshuvah Perek Gimel. Rambam writes here in Halakha Zayin, at least in the book before me, Rambam writes, Hamisha hem hanikraim minim. There are 5 categories of people that are defined as minim. Ha'omer she'en sham Eloah wa'en olam manhir. He who is an affirmed atheist, who says there is no God, nobody in charge, what we call in Yiddish a Hefkewelt. The world is Hefker. It just is, and there's nothing more to be said. That's number 1. Number 2, there are also those who adopt the opinion that there is some divine being that created or is in charge of what goes on, brought things into existence. But they are more than one in number. There are 2 or more in number. So you understand that this already includes almost all forms of Christianity, for example. this definition alone would not include Islam. The third is the third opinion or category is a person who says, yes, there is a God, there is a creator. Of course there is, but I believe he has a corporeal existence, a physical existence. Again, there are various types of Jews who may, today as well, who may hold such an opinion. Rambam is of the opinion that such a belief is minuf. So a person who believes that and writes a Sefer Torah, that's a mini Israeli shekatav Sefer Torah, and that's a big problem. There are those who disagree, such as the Ravav, that belief itself, even though incorrect, does not make you a min. It just means that you're a fool. Being a fool is not the same as being a min. But Rambam is of the opinion that this belief in and of itself is minuf. So a person who speaks about a human being being imbued with godliness in physical form, that is, according to Rambam, minuf without question. And the truth is that the Ravad would agree with that. The Ravad's point is only not about a human being, but he says there is a God, but that God has physical, corporeal existence and reality. The fourth category, the fourth category is someone who believes that this creator or this being is not the primal being that existed before all other things. In other words, there is such a thing, but the world also existed together at the same time. What is referred to in medieval philosophical parlance, olam kadmon. The world exists, God exists. It's not that everything comes from Hashem. In other words, there is an independent reality to the universe also. The fifth category, the person who worships any other being, which he considers a god or a divine being, in order to be a melis, to be some kind of go-between between himself and Ribon Ha'olamim, between Hashem. Kol ehad mihamisha elu min. All these five categories of people are considered a min. So you can well understand that this includes quite a number of views and positions. Rambam defines the question of minim in slightly different terms in Hilchot Avodah Zarah Perek Beth, Halacha Hey, or perhaps Waw in some other editions. I think it might be. Let's have a look quickly. In Machon Shilo Halacha Tet. Here Rambam says, "Uchen haminim miYisrael." Jews who are minim, enam ki Yisrael adavar min hadvarim. They are not considered Jews for any purpose. A Jew who was known to be a mean, we, and I stress we, do not accept him, even if he says, now I've done teshuvah, because we don't trust him. But if Hashem knows, as Hashem does know, that whether his teshuvah is complete and sincere, etc., Hashem accepts him. So it's not that he cannot do teshuvah, but we don't know what to do with such a person. We have a problem. So, in other words, the Jewish community relates to such a person, continues to relate to such a person as a min or a safek min, possibly a min, we don't know. The pasuk in Mishneh states that all those who follow a certain path never really return, they never really make it back. And Rabbi Meir was doresh this pasuk with regards to of the Avodah Zarah, Jews who of the Avodah Zarah, that once they go down that path, they're lost. Lo yishuvun, they will not return, or you cannot be certain that they return. And here Rambam now defines the concept. He says, "Wahaminim hem hatorim ahar machshavot libam." The sichluth. The minim refers that I refer to here, says Rambam, are those who follow various ideas and thoughts and opinions that occur to them, they choose to accept. The sichluth, based on stupidity, literally, sichluth. With varim shamanu, referring to the things that Rambam explained earlier in Hilchot Avodah Zarah, people who accept various ideas, and that is the basis of their religious, theological, moral outlook. So people who follow various ideas and opinions, and they follow these ideas, they believe in these ideas to the point, and this is the proof that they are minim, that they transgress various aspects of the Torah, gufei Torah, in other words, essential, well-known, clearly defined isurim in the Torah. Lahachis. Lahachis means literally to make angry, ka'as. Here it means to do so deliberately. B'sha'at b'nefesh. B'sha'at b'nefesh is based on the pasuk in Yesodei. In other words, with a total lack of care, respect, not a thought for the fact that this is what Hashem said. A person who transgresses various aspects of the Torah, with total disregard for the fact that this is what Hashem stated, that is called someone who does something lahachis, b'sha'at b'nefesh. In other words, with a haughty, high hand, tramples underfoot various aspects of the Torah without thinking twice. As opposed to what? As opposed to a person who eats a ham sandwich because he just loves the taste of a ham sandwich. Which is asur, obviously, as well, but it's not at all the same thing. It's not because he knows it's asur. He doesn't deny that it's asur. He also thinks that, I'll get away with it. Hashem will forgive me, or whatever it is, but right now I need this ham. So this is what I want to do. That's called lethe'avon, a person who's over al-nisur min HaTorah, lethe'avon, because of his appetite. But a person who does these things based on a hashkafa, based on an opinion, based on an approach, a philosophy, that's called lahachis, to do something very deliberately, with forethought. B'sha'at b'nefesh. B'yad ramah. B'yad ramah means to do so in a manner which implies revolt against Hashem, and to be quite happy to do so in public as well. It's one thing to do things at home or when others cannot see you. It's another thing to do things in public. And they say quite explicitly, we do this because there's no reason not to do this. So a person who says, yes, I drive on Shabbat. Why? Because I think there's no reason not to drive on Shabbat. You tell me that it's a asur according to Torah. I don't buy that. It doesn't interest me. And we are not even allowed to debate these people, to discuss things with them, to respond to their claims. As it says over there in Mishneh. In other words, there are many Pesukim in Mishneh which refer to such opinions and, in my view, can be seen as referring to various opinions and philosophies of the ancient Greeks. But in general, foreign ideas, foreign notions that cannot possibly be reconciled with the Torah. In Sefer Mishlei, these ideas are compared to a foreign woman who leads one astray. So the Torah, the pasuk says, "Well, tikra bepetach betah." Don't even walk by the entrance to a home. In other words, don't go near such ideas. Don't talk to them. Don't debate them. Just keep away, because it's infectious. Furthermore, we ought to assume that a person who is a min does many actions that he undertakes with the intention of connecting it to the particular avodah zarah that he believes in. In other words, it's not a fanciful idea at all to imagine, if we know that a sofer stam, for example, a person who writes mezuzot, holds certain opinions which are definitely minuth, according to a straightforward definition of the Torah. Yes, it is correct and proper to assume that he has these intentions and these thoughts when he writes the name of Hashem in the mezuzah, for example. Mahashevet min, his thoughts, la'avodah zarah, are connected to avodah zarah, because that is the way of such things. The people who believe with a passion in such things are essentially obsessed and will not let go of such things, and they see in everything they do an opportunity to further that cause, that belief system. Similar to people perhaps who subscribe to a certain fad or fashion or idea that is the in thing to do right now. They tend to find a way of returning to that philosophy or that opinion or that perspective without end. This may refer to philosophical views, medical opinions, so-called medical opinions. If it's the in thing, if it's the woke thing to do, it's the politically correct. Some people are totally they're so totally absorbed in these things that everything is connected to that thing for them. And with those people also, you cannot really speak, you cannot argue, you cannot debate, because it is not about facts, and it's not about even opinion, it's about a belief system. Okay. We shall stop here for today. B'ezrat Hashem. Kol tov lachem.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org. If you are inspired by Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to get involved in Torah Eretz Yisrael activities in your local area, please fill out the relevant form by going to the link which appears on the screen.